Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey, the MMA coach of the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. You might notice we are not actually at the JX Fight Club right now. I'm at some other gym with weights and stuff to lift today because the JX Fight Club is under construction. It's being renovated for the next few months, so be patient. We'll be back there eventually, but for now, we're on the road. So, speaking of weights, we have a question from our friend Christian Luna, who says, I have a question. Well, Christian, I have an answer. The question is, should martial artists and professional fighters train with weights? And if so, what would be a good weight training regime to follow? Can you make a video about this, please? Yes, I can, and yes, I am right now. So, Christian, here's your video. Yes, martial artists and professional fighters should definitely lift weights. Just about every athlete in almost every sport understands this. I mean, think about it. The sports that seem to require the least athleticism, those guys still put in the work in the weight room. Why do they do that? Like those people who do the skeleton race in the Winter Olympics where they run for like 2 seconds, then jump onto a sled, and then hold on for dear life. Why? Because strength is the precedent for athletic performance in those 2 or 3 seconds that they run and then they jump. So strength is that important that those guys do the serious squat, deadlift, sprint regime, if you will. If they have this serious lifting schedule, I mean, MMA, how much more athletically intensive is cage fighting? Like a lot. Every action for 15 to 25 minutes is so much more athletic than what happens in that skeleton race. And yet how many martial artists have I heard over the years saying, don't lift weights, lifting weights will make you slow. Nonsense. Strength is the precedence for power. Strength is the precedent for speed. Strength is the precedent for athletic performance. And you might say, well, why are bodybuilders so slow? Why? Because they don't train for speed. All they do is training aesthetics. How they look. So why should you lift weights if you're a martial artist? Why? Because it'll make you stronger, it'll make you better in every conceivable way. It'll make you harder to hurt, harder to break, harder to kill, harder to beat, harder to choke. It's going to fix your posture. What lifts should you be focusing on? The compound lifts primarily, especially these three: the squat, the deadlift, and the pull-up. For these simple reasons. The squat and the deadlift give you the most bang for the buck. They use the most muscles. And they are the primary postural lifts, meaning that they train you to use correct posture in fighting, especially grappling. Man, posture is so important in grappling. And I'm not just talking about pulling your shoulders back, not that at all. It is about being able to keep your head, neck, spine, and tailbone in a straight line, not having it twisted into a weak sauce position or bent into a weak position, but always having it in an athletic position where you can use full explosion and power. It'll make your takedowns better, it'll make your guard passing better, it'll make your defense better, it'll even make your striking better. So yeah, get in the weight room, do the work. Next question. Our next question comes from our friend Gingercore, who says, what do you think of old American-style kickboxing? Like Bill Superfoot Wallace and others who started doing point-style karate and went to full contact after. Having in mind Superfoot did quite a few knockouts. Bill Superfoot Wallace, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, he finished his career with 49 wins, 0 losses. Yeah, impressive guy in the ring back in the day, one of those old school greats as far as American kickboxing goes. But what do you think about the typical lead snappy kicks that he used? Do they have a place in modern martial arts? Yeah, man, Bill Wallace had a really unique style of fighting. Now, he started out as doing judo, and he ended up tearing his ACL in his left leg, in his left knee. And so he decided to switch to kickboxing because he thought that would be safer for his knee. So he switched stance into a southpaw stance, kept his injured leg in the back so it wouldn't get kicked, I guess. And he did all of his kicking with his right leg. And so he developed this really unique style where he would stand up on his left leg and kick multiple times with his right leg without setting it down. And he scored a bunch of knockouts that way. But the man also knew how to use his hands. But man, I love Bill Wallace's old school style of training. I'm trying to remember the title of his book. I studied this book back in college in my 20s. It's called something like Bill Superfoot Wallace's kicking book. I don't remember. But he's got this series of exercises in it. And it's a great series of exercise for any traditional martial artist, basically different ways to bring your leg up and move it around and develop your hip flexors in ways in which most people are really weak. And if you haven't done these exercises and you look at what Bill Wallace did in these fights, it looks superhuman, the way he's able to generate power by keeping his leg up and throwing multiple kicks without putting it down. And that's all about hip flexor control. So I don't know how viable that would be in MMA, because if you keep your leg up too long, you're going to open yourself up to takedowns, getting that leg caught, getting pushed over, things like that were not viable options in American kickboxing. However, this is an important however, anything that makes you a better athlete makes you a better fighter. And I still do those exercises, and maybe I'll show you some of those in another video. But yeah, I still do those old school Bill Wallace exercises. I love them. And even though I don't generally use the multiple kicks while sparring up on one leg, those exercises do make your single kicks much better, in my opinion. So it's worth investing some time into. Now, the game has changed a lot since Bill Wallace's day. I mean, if you take those old school fighters, those old school martial artists who were super impressive way back then, and compare them to today's martial artists, today's MMA champions, it's kind of weird to see that comparison. It's like looking at I don't know, old technology, which was really innovative, like the first computer, and comparing it to today's supercomputers, and there's really no comparison. But we can't have today's supercomputers without the old analog ones that came before. So, yeah, appreciate the pioneers, even though they'd probably get their butts kicked today doing what they did back then. Next question. I got a bunch of comments and questions about steroids and testosterone replacement therapy after I posted a couple of pictures of myself at age 30 and myself at age 40. And now at age 40, I'm much more muscular, much more athletic than I was at age 30. And a lot of people said, well, they accused me of being on steroids or taking testosterone replacement therapy, and no, I don't. I just train a lot better than I did back then. There's something magical that happens when you eat, move, breathe, sleep, and think in ways that push you in a positive direction. You get better. You get stronger. You get more athletic, and it shows. It shows in your body, it shows in your face, it shows in your actions, in your words, in your life, in every conceivable way. So, move, eat, breathe, think in ways that push you in positive directions, and in the next 10 years, you too will be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm not terribly disappointed with what I see. And as I always say, man, if you need drugs to be a great athlete, you're not a great athlete. Our next question comes from our friend Magnum Dong, who says, hey Ramsey, how many experience points does it take to get as good as you? Okay, good question. Well, here's the thing. You've got to kill a lot of metal slimes to get this good, man. But those things are slippery, hard to hit. Next question. Got a question from our friend Egistopia. He says, Ramsey, I got in a fight today at school. I'm embarrassed on how I let myself slip up and get in a fight. He was antagonizing me for the whole year and asked me if I wanted to fight. I saw him getting his hands ready and tried to head kick him. And he backed off, but was still antagonizing me. I snapped, and I tried to take him down and choke him out, but I was pulled off before I could hurt him. What should I do? I tried so hard not to hit him, but my body took over, and my mind stopped, like I was in a trance. I'm sorry for not using my Muay Thai right and shaming the martial arts world. Okay, what should you do? All right, first of all, don't beat yourself up too much, man. I have been there myself. Man, back in junior high school, I was very much like you, my friend. I got antagonized a lot. I didn't have a Muay Thai background. I was just a skinny little wimp who wanted to train in martial arts, but there were no martial arts schools around to train in. So I got antagonized by these bullies, and I remember I snapped more than once. Remember there was this kid antagonizing me in class one day, and one day I just snapped and did the two-handed rape choke on him, and we had the substitute teacher, this big dude who walked over and just picked me up and with this big old bear hug, and I'm kicking and screaming like, get off me, and no, not something I'm proud of. And another time, a group of school bullies were antagonizing me. Man, that's a great word to describe what bullies do. Antagonist is an enemy, somebody who makes themselves an enemy to you. Man, it sucks to have antagonists, but that's the way the world is, man. So the school bully was antagonizing me with some of his friends, and I remember I stood up right there in the middle of class and I said, after school, in the park, be there, shouting these angry words. And afterwards, I remember thinking, oh, man, what did I just do? I don't know how to fight. And the school bully's like, yeah, we're gonna rumble after school. But they didn't wait till after school. The school bully and all of his friends, like 15 of them, jumped me outside the school at lunchtime and beat the crap out of me, man. They just beat me within an inch of my life. It sucked. And man, they used to steal my shoes and play keep away with them, and I'd run after them and snap. And they just beat the crap out of me. And yeah, but I understand that feeling when your body just takes over and your mind is like, I'm out, checking out here, and you just want to throttle that guy. And if I was physically able to do that back then, if I actually had training and knew how to choke a guy out, man, it's thinking about what I might have done in that situation is really, it's giving me pause to think. So what should you do? Well, what you've done right is that you recognize there's a problem. Good. When you recognize there's a problem, now you know how to make it right. Took me a very long time, I think, to get to the stage where you are right now, because I was stuck in the I gotta beat up the bullies phase for a very, very long time. I've been training in martial arts for years until I got to that point where I realized this is about something more than just beating up the bullies. This is about something else. This transcends beating up the bullies. So you're ahead of the game, my friend. Man, especially if you're a young guy still in school being antagonized by bullies, man. And it's a good thing to get this in check now. So go out there and make it right. I remember years later in high school, the school bully, this guy whose friends beat me up, at lunchtime who I challenged to a fight after school in the park. He came up to me at lunch and he started talking to me, but he wasn't antagonizing me. And he basically said, hey man, it seems like there's this big rift between us. Like why aren't we friends? And that kind of shocked me, like, what? Why aren't we friends? Isn't it obvious? You're the antagonist, you're the enemy, you're the bad guy. But he didn't see it that way. He saw it as, just kids being kids. Roughhousing or whatever. And he actually had a genuine interest in being my friend. And man, that was a weird thing. I was like, what? No. Because it's so easy to put people in these black and white categories, the good guys and the bad guys. Because that's how movies work, that's how fiction works. But that's not how real life works. People are dynamic. People make mistakes. And people can fix their mistakes. So, yeah, you made a mistake, and that's okay. We all do. I've made plenty. And I'm not going to judge you for that. So what can you do? I'd recommend talk to this dude. Make it right. Offer the olive branch, if you will. And hopefully it won't take till, 3-4 years down the line where you can have a civil conversation about it. Try it now. Maybe he's not ready yet, but, eventually he will be, hopefully. Good luck. Next question. Our next question comes from Vagabond Art, who says, since when has it been a standard for high-end professional fighters to enact drama for an upcoming fight? Why doesn't it get old? Okay, that's been a standard since 1931, possibly 1933. I don't remember exactly. It's the time when Gorgeous George Wagner, the professional wrestler, back when wrestling was a legitimate combat sport, before it turned into pure sports entertainment, like the WWF and later the WWE. So, back in Gorgeous George's day, wrestling, it was popular, but people kind of got bored sometimes. Because people who don't understand wrestling, watching wrestling, like real wrestling, they're like, it's two guys hugging each other. Meh, whatever. That's not cool. So you have to really love wrestling to love pure wrestling. So what Gorgeous George did, he noticed something. Somebody invented the television. And TV started to become, well, more popular, but not really popular, because there wasn't much on TV. People showed, what was it? The news, a couple of sports, football, where the athletes looked like little ants on this tiny little screen that was about that big. But they also showed wrestling, and they showed close-ups of the wrestlers' faces. And you could hear the wrestlers' voices when they talked to the camera. And Gorgeous George had this idea, I'm going to put on a character. And he did. He permed his hair, he spoke with a lisp, he acted very effeminate, which made people angry, and he enacted some drama. And he became the first professional heel in professional wrestling. A heel is the guy that everybody loves to hate. Now, this has gone in and out of style in combat sports. Some other wrestlers followed suit, actually a lot, which led to, more and more worked matches. That's the fake wrestling, if you will. It's not fake, it's scripted. Yeah. The worked matches. And, later we saw it with Muhammad Ali in boxing. He took a page from Gorgeous George and spoke in verse and rhymes and taunted his opponents and things like that. And we've seen it more recently kind of exploding in mixed martial arts with Conor McGregor. And now everybody wants to be famous and rich like Conor McGregor. And so they think, I will do what Conor McGregor does, and that's talk trash and be a character and enact drama. Now, I don't like that because I love the sport of mixed martial arts, but the average person doesn't actually love the sport of mixed martial arts. They like drama. They'll say they don't. They say, oh, I love the sport. I love watching fights. But the average person loves drama. So why doesn't it get old? Well, because that's human nature, man. Unfortunately, that's human nature. If we don't truly love something, we will want to squeeze something juicy out of it. Drama. Next question. Our next question comes from Little Grizzly, who says, hey Ramsey, I love your work. Thank you. Can you define martial arts master? Is it someone who knows every move? For example, a collector. Or is it someone with immense skill that can pull off some impressive feats? Can you please answer and maybe break it down a little bit for me? Oh man, martial arts master. Here's the thing. Everyone I have ever met or heard of who describes themselves as a master of martial arts is anything but. Man, we're talking about bullshido shills to the extreme. Man, the only guy I've ever met who I would describe as a master of martial arts didn't even call himself that. And by that I just mean somebody who was really, really good at what he did. Just genuinely, honestly good at what he did. I have a friend, Dan Lucart. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Brea, California. He has a gym out there, Brea Jiu-Jitsu. If you're in the area, go check it out. Say hi to Dan. And Dan he's a good Jiu-Jitsu player. He's won a bunch of tournaments and stuff, a bunch of medals, and trained a bunch of really good Jiu-Jitsu competitors. And he said something the other day online. He wrote the following, and I'm going to paraphrase. He said, I am an expert in a very limited subset of skills in the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. An expert in a very limited subset of skills. The more you know, the more you realize the less you know. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so when you find a guy like Dan who is by all measures a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert. I mean, they don't give out black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to people who are not experts in the art. But this man describes himself as an expert in subsets. Subsets. He understands there are levels to the levels to the levels. So yeah, that's where real mastery begins, when you recognize your limitations, I would say. Man, recognizing limitations is super important, because unless we can recognize limitations, if we can't recognize limitations, then we will not ask the right questions. And if we can't do that, we will never find the answers, as I always say. Next question. I've got a bunch of questions and comments from viewers commenting on a very questionable self-defense program advertisement that comes up before my videos and pretty much any martial arts or self-defense related video on YouTube. And I was curious about this too, so I followed the link back to its source, and here's the scoop on the whole thing. Long story short, it is the intellectual property of a guy named Todd Lamb. Todd Lamb is a fitness expert based in Canada who had some success selling fitness programs for a while. He was a former SWAT officer in Canada and ran into some legal trouble for advertising his fitness program using images of active duty SWAT officers. So this is not a review of his fitness program. I've heard some people say it's great and other people say, whatever. But I don't know. But Todd Lamb at some point teamed up with a fellow named Ari Nazen, also known as Ari Bolden. And together they made some self-defense videos. And then they put out this Alpha Fighter, what's it called? Combat Fighter Alpha Nation program. Now what's different about the Alpha Nation Combat Fighter program versus their other self-defense things? Let's see, they put out the following programs. First Strike, yeah, that's the one. So Ari and Todd put together this self-defense program called First Strike. Now, if you're not familiar with Ari Nazen, he was a little infamous way back when, like 11, 12 years ago, for starting a really successful YouTube page called Submissions 101, where he taught Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The only problem was he presented himself as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he was not. He did not hold a rank in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there was a whole to-do about this. He got absolutely crucified by the internet, and then he went legitimate and actually earned a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu many years later. A lot of people still give him trouble about that, and I get it. I get it. The internet does not want to forgive or to forget. And so, what's interesting is you have these two guys who actually do have quite a lot of real-life experience in personal protection, self-defense, law enforcement, that sort of thing. Ari, right now, I believe he works as a police officer, and he spent many years working as a bouncer at a club. And yeah, I don't care if you're the worst grappler in the world. If you spend 10, 12 years grappling consistently, you're going to learn a few things about that. So these two guys conceivably could have put out a pretty decent self-defense program. I haven't looked at it in depth. I've only looked at what they have available on YouTube for free. And instead of doing that, what they did was created a fiction about a character named John Black, who is this military person in some unspecified branch of the military of, doesn't specify what country, an English-speaking country. And what's John Black's deal? He promises that you will be able to win any fight with minimal training, like 2 days, a weekend of training, against any person, no matter what size or strength or experience they have. And if you follow to the website, he poo-poos martial arts and MMA and boxing and combat sports and says, none of that will help you in a real-life situation, but I have the answers. And there's a little fictional biography about John Black, which is an amalgamation of the life experience of Todd Lamb and Ari Nazen. For example, John Black worked as a bouncer, just like Ari. And he had a lot of traditional martial arts experience, just like Ari, which later failed him, just like Ari. He had military or special ops or SWAT experience, just like Todd Lamb. And so these two drew on their personal narratives to create this fictional character. Why would they do this? Why would they create this fictional character instead of just saying, hey, this is my real life experience, this is what I learned, and maybe this stuff can help you? Well, I'll tell you why. Because both of these guys, in their respective fields, have been absolutely doxxed and crucified. And so even though Ari went legit a long time ago, and you know, I've interacted with him online, and he's a nice guy. He used to stop by and leave positive comments on my YouTube channel. So super nice guy, and I don't want to say anything to badmouth him. But why would he get involved in this? That confused me. And why would Todd Lamb, a man who has legitimate real life experience with life and death situations, why would he feel the need to invent a character like that? Again, because the internet does not forgive and it does not forget. Once somebody is doxxed on the internet, we have this propensity to want that person to burn and perish from the earth. So I imagine when Ari and Todd, they did make a self-defense video featuring their names and their faces. I think it was called First Strike, looking through my list of their programs here. And I don't know how popular it was, how much it sold, but I'm guessing people saw Ari's face and they saw Todd's face and their names, and they might have done a couple of Google searches and thought, oh, that's that fake black belt. Oh, that's that guy who sold out his teammates. I'm not going to buy that. Hence the need to create a ghost writer appellation, John Black. So, that's the long story short, man. I'm sure if you ask them, they'd probably say something else like, well, no, but you know, I'm not them, so I can't speak for them. That's simply what I gathered from my research. So, man, there's a lot of value in telling the truth the first time, you know. A lot of people ask me what I think of various internet self-defense gurus or martial artists or whatever. Like one that comes to mind, Shane Faison. A lot of people ask me, what do you think of the Fight Tips guy? Because he's got one of the most popular martial arts and self-defense channels on YouTube, by far. And one thing that I like about blanking on his name, the Fight Tips guy, is that he doesn't pretend. Like if you see his videos about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's wearing a white belt. He's not going out there trying to self-promote himself to impress people. He wears his white belt proudly, and he brings in experts who know stuff and addresses them by name. And that's cool. That's cool. So it's really interesting that we've got this guy, Shane Faison, that's his name, who has amateur boxing experience, taekwondo experience, I believe, some Muay Thai experience, but no professional MMA experience, and a white belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And because he is honest about that, because he is 100% honest about his abilities, his experience, his ranks, etc., people respect that and they respond to it. And that's really cool. So, on the other hand of the equation, we have these guys who together have a fairly considerable body of experience in personal protection, martial arts, fitness, etc., but they feel they have to create a fiction in order to get noticed. And that's kind of sad. So, man, tell the truth, man, tell the truth, because when you tell the truth, you don't have to go to all the trouble to remembering your whole web of lies. You don't have to remember a damn thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments down below. Or email me at ramseydewey@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.